Good afternoon, everyone. Live from Silicon Valley, California. This is Spiritual Fitness with your host, Vaish. Spiritual Fitness is a program dedicated to exploring the timeless texts and practices of Bhakti Yoga for people who want wisdom in their daily life. We have close to 20 people on Zoom and more than 100 people on Facebook. I have Anushri helping me out in managing social media today. Good afternoon, Vaish. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, JM. I'm glad to be back and good to see all of you back too. Thank you for coming. You mentioned, JM, that we're talking about the Bhakti Yoga tradition, which is the line of teachers I come from. And we're actually being cross-disciplinary right now because we're talking about Ashtanga Yoga. It's by Patanjali Muni, who wrote his sutras or codes, very short sentences that give a lot of meaning. And they've been commentated upon over many thousands of years. They form the very basis of modern day practices of yoga and meditation. So and there are many crossovers. So I'll be emphasizing some of the crossovers into the tradition of Bhakti Yoga. And I think that you'll find all of the information here intuitive and also helpful, because great discoveries come only unto the prepared mind, as Louis Pasteur once said. And preparing the mind has a lot to do with following in the footsteps of the great wisdom teachers who have perhaps a different kind of environment than we have now. And also, there was a kind of strict adherence from an early age to certain practices that it gave them a head start and a lot of extra knowledge. So today I'm going to be sharing the 5 personal disciplines that lead to an enlightened mind. And this is right out of the Yoga Sutras last week, and I'll review it in a moment, the yamas. The yamas are those ways in which we interact with the outside world and with other people. And then the niyamas are the ways that we deal with ourselves. There are disciplines, actually, in our life. And Patanjali said these are non-negotiable. If you're going to practice yoga, or if you want to have an enlightened mind or even a peaceful mind, he says, it doesn't matter what time, place, geographical location, era that you live in. You have to employ these to one degree or another in order to be successful. So that might get our attention, that they're so universal that he emphasizes that we should attend to them. In fact, they're the first 2 steps in the Ashtanga, which Ashta means 8 in Sanskrit. Anga means limbs, or the 8 parts of the practice of meditational yoga. So he says you can't enter without these. So let us start by doing what we can to introspect and get a little bit of centeredness. And if you'll just sit up a little straighter than you were a couple of seconds ago, and then close your eyes and bring your attention inwardly by starting with your breath. And if you'll notice that a second ago you weren't concentrating on your breath and that now you are, it gives an inkling to the fact that you get to choose where you place your attention. And where attention goes, energy flows. The great secret to life is where we place our attention, and the asset that we all have as living, conscious beings is that we can choose where to place our attention. And it may take some practice, and that's the practice of meditation. So breathe. And one way to keep steady on your meditation, on your breath, is to employ gratitude and start to appreciate that your breath and the air you're breathing is sustaining your body and your mind, the instruments that you need to view the world, to interact with it, and to come to the point of enlightenment. You need these instruments, and they are an integral part of the environment. Our umbilical cord gives us oxygen when we're in the womb. When the umbilical cord is cut, we take our first breath. And we continue until we drop this body and go to a new environment. So appreciate each breath as more valuable than any gold or jewels. And see that it's coming as a free gift. And notice as you inhale that all the cells in your body are being nourished. They actually breathe at the same time you do. The entry of oxygen gets distributed to every cell, which is an independent organism that needs to have it. And just be in the moment. Allow yourself to appreciate that you exist and that you're being maintained by your breath, which is coming to you as a gift. And now try to expand that gratitude that you're feeling for your breath and transfer your attention along with that gratitude into your heart, the heart chakra, which is our very residence, the residence of the non-neural, non-chemical, non-temporal particle that we are, that sustains this body through consciousness, animates it, and which is the seat of our emotions. And keep an idea in your mind, in your heart, as you continue to breathe, that I am enough. I exist. And I'm the witness of my life situation. My life situation, all the things that I have, all the duties that I have to do, these are all passing circumstances. They're not me. I'm separate from my life situation. I'm separate from the biological body that I reside in. And I'm even separate from my thoughts, which are subtle energy passing through the environment of my chitta, the mind. Allow yourself to be. You don't have to become anything. You don't have to go anywhere. You exist. You always will exist, and you always have existed. And continue to breathe. And let that breath feed the gratitude that you feel for not only your existence, but for the way that you're being sustained by a higher force. And now, to synchronize all of the spiritual energies within our chakras, we will chant the mantra Om 3 times. Please join me behind muted mics. And bring your attention back to your breath. You can rub your hands together to bring some external sensation to your physical body. Open your eyes and come back into the room. So the mantra we chanted, Om, is what Patanjali recommends in his Yoga Sutras, and it is a form that we'll talk about today called Swadhyaya, or a way to realize not only oneself, but the sustainer of oneself. And when we get into this section called the 5 personal disciplines, niyama, we're confronted with the word discipline. And sometimes the word can have pejorative connotations. The mind may reject it. Oh, I don't want to discipline. But let's think about it from the positive side, what the word actually means in Latin. It comes from a root word that means learner. When we're able to tame the unruly mind, then we can learn everything about ourselves, and we can see the world from a higher perspective. We can also gain powers of discipline and the power of forgiveness, the power to subdue anger. These are the real powers of this world, the real assets that we can gain. Of course, anyone who's achieved anything knows that it requires some discipline, a way in which one has to overcome the whimsy of the mind that I want to do anything I want to do at any time. But if you want to attain a higher result and a higher reward, then you have to self-discipline. So we can do that. That's one of the exciting aspects of being a human being, is that we have the wherewithal to discipline ourselves with a little help. As I described in a previous class, with knowledge and practice, we can rise above whatever situation we're in now. So having said that, Patanjali summarizes a few of the benefits that you'll get from these 5 disciplines that I'm about to list, called the niyamas. And he said from these practices, one gets a sattvic mind. Sattva is the highest modality of nature that gives clarity, wisdom, and so forth. And he says through these practices, you'll achieve sattva, and therefore you'll get cheerfulness, one-pointedness of mind, sense control, and fitness to perceive the self. So this is his summary of the various benefits, but there are very particular benefits to each one of these disciplines that I'm about to list. So the first one is called shaucha. Everyone say shaucha. Shaucha means cleanliness. And Patanjali says there's internal and external cleanliness. Previously, we've given talks entitled "You Are a Container." And the body, which is a container, holds on to things. And it depends what we put inside us of what we're carrying around and what our content is, and therefore what our contentment is. You'll notice that content and content are the same word. So shaucha, which is cleanliness, means internal and external. So internally, you could show that next picture for shaucha. It's kind of nice. Makes you peaceful just looking at it. That there's external cleanliness, which means your environment should be orderly, clean. A place for everything and everything in its place. A personal organizer I once talked to gave me a phrase that I've always kept with me, and that's visual noise. She said, "You see this? You see that? Do you notice it?" I said, "Nope, it's been there so long I don't even notice it anymore." She said, "These things that you have around that you don't need amount to visual noise, and it creates extra weight on your mind." So the idea of a clean environment means that you're affected, your mind, the level of sattva or purity in your mind will be affected by how you keep your environment. Personally, under lockdown, I've been taking the discipline of keeping the place I'm staying extremely clean. I'm going out of my way to do that. And I find that very naturally, by being in a clean environment, my mind is lifted. I come to a higher level of perception, happiness, just by the external environment. Now, I'll tell you something that may shock you because it's not normal in the West, but that is that yogis generally bathe at least 3 times a day because they're meticulously clean, and this is part of the principle of shaucha. And here are some of the benefits that come from shaucha. Patanjali says, you start to realize your body is not yourself, and it's a very interesting reason, at least interesting to me, and that is that as much as you clean your body, it continues to exude all kinds of foul substances, no matter how many times you clean it. So you start to realize that the body is not myself because I can't relate to all this stuff coming out. Sorry, but that's just what he says. He says, by meditating on the realities of the act of cleanliness, the yogi ceases to see the body as an erotic object. So yogis are very self-controlled, and so they look at the body very objectively. It's a vehicle and so forth. So this is one of the benefits of cleanliness, both internally and externally. The next is called santosh, and it's a nice word. Let's see what kind of imagery we have for that. JM. Contentment. So, first of all, the commentators on the Yoga Sutras, going back to antiquity, analyze various different kinds of happiness. And they say that the kind of happiness that we get through interaction with our senses and sense objects is short-lived, and therefore they put it at the bottom of the list. In fact, in the Bhagavad Gita, there's a verse that says, Yehi samsparshaja bhoga dukkha yonaya evate adyantavanta konteya nateshu ramate Buddha. So a person who is Buddha, which means not the Buddha, not Gautam Buddha, but it means a person who is Buddha or intelligent, is aware of the fact that when I try to get my happiness by titillating the senses again and again, there's the law of diminishing returns is in effect. The more I try to enjoy the senses, the less happiness I get out of them. Not only that, in the verse I just quoted, Krishna has said that it becomes a source of misery, actually, when I try to wantonly enjoy the senses. and try to squeeze some satisfaction out of them. So one can get a sense of happiness from a higher level. That is by identifying with one's spiritual self, with the Atma. And because we're in a higher category of energy than the material body. So that makes sense. And then he gives this definition of santosh: disinterest in accumulating more than one's immediate needs in life. And there's a hint here, which is that there's never enough to satisfy all of one's desires. Too much is not enough, in other words. The idea in the yoga literatures is that desire burns like fire. No matter how much you give it, it's going to want more. I don't know if you've ever experienced that, but what if somebody gave you some money and you were happy for a few seconds, and then your mind thought, hey, wait a minute, the guy's a billionaire. He could have given me a little more. Besides that, all this is already spent. By the time it hit my pocket, I realized that I owe all this money anyway. So there's never a point at which I get something in this world and I say, okay, now I'm completely happy with it. However, by practicing santosh, and what is the practice? That even if there's some apparent lack, I think it is enough. Try saying that just one or two times. It is enough. And it's remarkable how we can readjust, because I've seen it for myself that whatever environment I'm in, if I consider what actually makes me happy in this environment, just feeling that I have enough. And I've seen people who live in extremely opulent environments, big houses and so forth, and then they go somewhere else to find satisfaction, even during lockdown. I have a friend who knows somebody who lives in a huge home, but then got tired of it and wanted to go to their other home somewhere else to spend a little time during the lockdown. And so this is not to pick on somebody with a big house, because there's nothing wrong with that, but it's just to say, pick on the mind that's always looking for something else. Whereas there's a practice by saying, oh, what's wrong with what I just have right now? Is it enough? Yes, it's enough. So interestingly enough, contentment or santosh is a practice. It's actually something that we practice. And here's a couple of verses that I pulled out of the wisdom literatures that I've always been advocating. Yeah, you should read these. These two are from Srimad Bhagavatam. It's an ancient wisdom literature on bhakti, the science of bhakti yoga. So these kind of align with the principle of santosh. A quote: just as a deer, because of ignorance, cannot see the water within a well covered by grass, but runs after water elsewhere, the living entity covered by the material body does not see the happiness within himself, but runs after happiness in the material world. So you have the imagery of the deer sniffing around. He wants water. He misses the well altogether. It's covered by grass. It goes off into the desert. And the other one, related to santosh, also from Srimad Bhagavatam, quote, for a person who has suitable shoes on her feet, there is no danger, even if she walks on pebbles and thorns. For her, everything is auspicious. Similarly, for one who is always self-satisfied, there is no distress. Indeed, she feels happiness everywhere. So this sense of santosh means that it comes from within ourselves. It's not a product of our external environment. And it is a discipline. Let's see what we have for the next one.
Before that, we do have a couple of...
let's do that then. We'll take a break and good. I like it when the questions and reflections break through the wall and cause me to stop. Go ahead.
S. Krishnamurti, he mentioned two things. One is, it's not just what I have is enough, what I have is more than enough. And second is, it's a capitalistic philosophy. Is never to be content. Like you always want, you want to keep trying to grow, keep wanting more. So that is a capitalistic philosophy. So those were some of the reflection, Mr. Krishna.
That's very astute and very helpful. Who gave those comments?
Yes, Krishnamurti.
Oh, oh, very nice. Yes, I like that a lot. So more than enough is that um, power of gratitude that we were looking at a little bit while we were doing our meditation. So there's a way in which gratitude, whatever you appreciate, appreciates. Just as you put money in the bank and it appreciates, hopefully. Uh, so similarly, wherever you put your attention and then you add in the element of gratitude, appreciation, then it grows. It's unlimitedly how much you can appreciate the simplest of items. And it's also amazing how one can overlook all of the gifts that are flowing into one's life at any given second. So we're free to actually take time to look at those and focus our attention with gratitude. Really, this is the beginning of the practice of bhakti yoga. Bhakti yoga unites us to our original conscious source and the realization that we're being maintained and benevolently, and that there are gifts flowing into our hearts, our minds, our environment at every second. But we have to prepare ourselves, that's the practice, in order to actually notice them and receive them and offer them back. So that's really nice, more than enough. And the capitalist philosophy is never to be content. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of required that the fall seasons are done, or summer seasons are done now. Fall's already come in. Christmas is going to start in September. The holiday buying season, it has to come on, pick it up. In fact, I remember after the Gulf War, our president said, we have to get back out there and consume. Let's move. It gets institutionalized, this whole idea that let's just go, go, go. Now, there have been a number of movements where people have said, let's slow down a little bit. In fact, if you live closer to the land, in some ways you can notice. In fact, I've noticed this recently because I've been doing a lot of gardening during the lockdown. I didn't have as much time for it before because I was always on the road. But just the pleasure of planting a seed and watching it grow and seeing how there's too much, there's so much that we're canning everything. There's so many peaches, there's so many squash, there's so many tomatoes, everything coming out in more than we can handle. And that came from a couple of seeds that somebody gave me. So, why institutionalize this sense of being discontent? Do you have anything else there, JM?
We do have Namrata on Facebook. She says, it's such a relief that contentment is self-generated and not dependent on an external circumstances.
Who said that?
Namrata.
Oh, that's brilliant.
Yeah, it is completely within my circle of influence. So she was
Yeah, I like that too. And that's why I emphasize that point. The contentment is a practice. It's not that you have to wait around for it. It's already there. You just have to really put yourself in that situation. It's really a matter of perspective in a lot of ways. Of course, there is a hierarchy of needs. We're not saying if you're very uncomfortable or lacking food or something like that, that you should just suck it up. In fact, we human beings do need certain things in order to be healthy in body and mind, and those should be there. Actually, part of the way of the world getting out of balance is that too many people are deprived because of artificial standard of living, of having these types of things. It's not necessary. In fact, I was just talking to a student in India this morning, and he was telling me, wow, the seasons are on time this year and everything's clean because so people have been locked down for so long now that nature's just falling back into place the way it used to be in the old days before there was so much garbage in the environment. So self-imposed artificial standards or societally imposed artificial standards that get out of hand tend to put things out of balance. It makes it difficult for some people. So I'm not saying to neglect those types of things. Yes, thank you for that, Amrita. That was really helpful. What else do we have? Anybody else want to make a comment before I barrel through the other ones? Very well. Oh, JM, you're on mute.
No, just saying you can unmute yourself and ask any questions or reflections. I'll put it in chat box and I can read out.
Okay. Right. I love getting reflections and questions, by the way. And so feel free to break in anytime. This is by no means meant to be a monologue. Okay, here we go. We're continuing with the 5 personal disciplines that lead to an enlightened mind. I just wonder how you're all doing with this so far. Are these good? Are they inordinate? Are they intimidating? I got a thumbs up from Radhakripa. Okay, any feedback you have from just the visceral reaction you're getting from these, I'd be interested to hear, because here comes the next one. It's called tapa, or austerity. Again, these words can trigger things, but austerity really comes down to the practice of tolerance. Like, I don't know if any of you have tried fasting before, but fasting requires a little tolerance, because the body and the mind start saying, hey, wait a minute. First of all, it's time to feed us. And second of all, if you don't, we're going to be nagging you all day long or more. We might even die. So there are ways in which those who are practicing to still the mind and to come to a higher level of happiness can practice tolerance and get great benefit. So tolerating hunger, thirst, other extremes. Another one that is mentioned by Patanjali and the commentators for austerity is avoiding useless talk. This is the austerity of the tongue. There's a way in which the tongue just wants to say any old thing at any time. And what we say has a profound effect on our consciousness, and what to speak of the consciousness of others. So avoiding useless talk, which useless talk is called prajalpa, or gramya kata, it means village talk, spreading rumors, gossiping, and so forth. And this is basically what the 24-hour news cycle has come down to. It's a bunch of gossip. Who said what to whom, when, and so forth. The macro important parts of it, you can glean in about 2 minutes. You don't need 24 hours to comb through every single thing everyone said. And it tends to become part of the culture, just to go on and on about things. But being succinct and economizing, saying things that are important, following. I know my mother told me this. It's something that's been passed down, I think, for generations, that if you don't have anything good to say, don't say anything at all. And if you try that for a couple hours, you'll notice that it's an austerity, because the tongue just wants to say something about anything just for the sake of it. In fact, at some of the japa retreats that we've done, one of the days we have a day of silence, only chanting japa. And I know before the retreats, people say, when they're coming to it, they'll say, everything I can handle, I just don't know if I could stop talking for a day. But what they find is just the opposite. One of the participants said, I noticed that, first of all, the reduced social intercourse made me very peaceful. And he said, I noticed that I spend a lot of time thinking of what to say to people and then how to respond to what they said to me. And a lot of it's superficial. So he got an objective view of how much he was burning up the environment with his tongue. Just as much as one might get a view by looking at the little device on the smartphone, or the little app that tells you how much screen time you're using up. You might be surprised. It's like, oh, all that? And similarly, how much I use my tongue for useless things might be surprising as well. So that can be a part of the austerity. And then The next is, let me tell the benefit. Benefit is it's purifying. It purifies the senses by tolerating the urge to speak, by being more moderate and tolerating various other kinds of extremes that come, heat, cold, so forth, not just overreacting to them. Then the senses become purified, which really means they come to a higher level, a higher modality called sattva. Okay. What else, JM?
Christian is on Zoom saying, I remember the session about yoga for your tongue or something last year. So she was fondly remembering that session.
That's right. Oh, really? That's nice. Yeah, it was yoga of the tongue. And it was not about how your tongue can do downward dog. It was really about how your tongue is a rudder of the ship of your body and mind. And what we use our tongue for will determine the direction we're going in life. In fact, there's an ancient scripture called the Padma Purana, and this is what it claims. I'll say it in Sanskrit and English. Atashi Krishnanama adina bhaved grayam indriye sevamukhi jivado swayam eva spuratyada. It says that yoga begins with the tongue. And if you're able to control your tongue, then you'll be able to not only control all your other senses, but you'll be able to observe your higher self. And this is jihwa. Jihwa means tongue in Sanskrit, and adao means the beginning. So the beginning of yoga is your tongue. So it says start there. That's the main austerity.
We have Amod on Facebook asking, does shauch also is also related to cleanliness of mind? And the answer is yes.
Is what?
Shauch also means cleanliness of mind.
Thought.
Yeah, thought. Yeah, cleanliness of thought, yes.
Yes, cleanliness of thought. Yes, definitely. Yes, and anybody else from the Zoom platform, if you just want to, unmute and just give any reflections, or if you have a question, please go ahead. Okay, shall I continue? I'll need a thumbs up for encouragement. Like that. I need a plethora. Hey, thank you. There's a little button at the bottom that says reactions. Thank you. Hey, I'm so encouraged now. Thank you very much. All right, so here we are. We're in the last leg, in the last two. So the next one is called swadhyaya. It's a really beautiful word, actually. Swa means yourself, and adhyaya means to study. So self-study. And it also means study of wisdom literature. There are some main wisdom literatures that if you study them, actually, the knowledge is so intuitive, as you might have noticed from the two verses that I quoted earlier. For instance, for a person who has suitable shoes on her feet, there is no danger even if she walks on pebbles and thorns. For her, everything else is auspicious. Similarly, for one who is always self-satisfied, there's no distress. Indeed, she feels happiness everywhere. So studying wisdom literatures really aligns the mind with one's higher purpose and gives insight very readily. And then the second part to this swadhyaya is called japa. And we did a little japa just a moment ago. Japa means to utter a mantra. Mantra is a sound that doesn't require interpretation. Normally, the words that come from the dimension that we live in indicate something, and therefore there's what's called kalpanam. When I hear a word like dog, in the process of kalpanam, or I see a dog, then my brain very quickly, of course, searches for the category dog, and then brings out the word and the concept in my mind, and then I relate it to the object. However, in mantra, because the sound vibration is from the fourth dimension, it's from beyond the dimension of kalpanam, or interpretation by the mind. It appears directly. The object, as I mentioned before, the mantra is an avatar. It comes from a higher level of existence, and therefore it appears in our consciousness if we're careful to listen to it. Of course, we can block out the mantra by the chatter in our mind or by doing something else at the same time. And however, if one practices this japa, a self-study, a self-examination, by chanting the japa, by chanting the mantra, one will begin to realize one's connection with original conscious source. And this is the purpose of yoga. So through study of the wisdom literature, which one can do every day, a little bit even, and doing some japa every day, this makes this a very powerful connection. So this is one of the niyamas, one of the personal disciplines. And he says, does the author Patanjali, that this makes a connection with the avatar. This makes it very tangible. So then we come to the fifth of the disciplines, and this is devotional service to our original conscious source. So this is to offer one's activities to our original conscious source, called Ishvara. As I mentioned throughout, we're being maintained. There's something that is benevolent, that is maintaining us, force. And when we're offering our work and the activities of our life, we're offering it as service, then this becomes what's called Ishvara Pranadani. And this is, he said, the benefit is that one can easily, very easily come to the perfection of yoga and meditation, which is samadhi. When one's mind rises above the chatter of the lower stratum and comes to the spiritual level where there's a perfect meditation on the original conscious source of our life. And so Ishvara Pranidhan is the fifth one. And now let's see if you have any reflections. What things that stuck in your mind when you heard these five disciplines that you might be taking with you? And I'm going to practice silence until you write something or say something.
Yes. Practicing silence, like stopping the unnecessary inputs. Something definitely I would like to.
Stopping unnecessary inputs. Yes. My teacher used to talk about unnecessary necessities. The mind creates all kinds of ideas for necessities. And earlier we heard from Sri Krishnamurti about how there can be an institutionalized way in which our minds become agitated. You got to have a new style. You have to have this and that. And the mind's always creating these kinds of things. So if we rise above that, even I see some successful entrepreneurs. I know Steve Jobs had this idea, always wear the same thing every day. He wore blue jeans and a turtleneck. He said, I don't want to have to worry about anything, any other new style. This is good enough. So this is kind of like a yogic idea. He had inclinations towards Zen practice, and his original mantra was the journey is the reward, and so forth. And yogis are careful not to become swept away by unnecessary necessities. What else do we have, JM?
So we have a few more reflection on Zoom.
My vow of silence worked. That now there's reflections pouring in. Okay,
Yeah.
Go ahead.
One is from Arun. Cleanliness is something he's taking away today. And then Silva Kumar says tapas and self-control. He's taking that point away today. And Bonnie says rereading the French folk tale about the apple of contentment.
Could you say more about that, Bonnie?
It's been a while since I read it, but as I recall, it is a story about, your typical sort of stepdaughter story.
Yeah.
But in this one, she has an apple tree that grows golden apples, and she's the only one that can pick them because she is content, and they are the apples of contentment. And she ends up married to the king, of course, because it's a folk tale. But he can't pick them and relies on her, actually, to pick the apples of contentment for him, which I thought was a really beautiful sort of thing that we can offer. I believe the word today was satosh.
Santosh.
Santosh. Thank you.
Perfect.
We can offer santosh to others, perhaps.
I like that a lot. This says so much that she was the one qualified to pick the apples. And that takes us back to the yamas. Do you remember last week we talked about the yamas, those who were here? And one of them is called asteya, which means don't steal. So this asteya means no stealing. Yeah, there it is, number 3. Benefit, whatever you need will come to you automatically by its own accord. This is what Patanjali says. When not stealing means not just physically going and grabbing people's stuff, but it also means in your mind, keep what's yours. Whatever your quota is, take that. Don't take more than your quota, because that means you're taking other people's quota. You don't need to hoard and things like that. And when you learn to live like that, he says that whatever you need will come to you automatically by its own accord. And I really, Bonnie, related that immediately in my mind to this principle when you talked about the golden apples. I'm going to go read that story. Thank you. That was really good.
It's the apple of contentment.
The apple of contentment. Okay, I'm in on that one. For sure.
I have a question.
Yes.
There are some people who are by nature talkative and some are quiet. So is it possible that those who are talkative can still practice being silent, or
Yes, actually,
going against their nature?
It's a really good question, because they're just as there are different definitions of nonviolence, there's different definitions of silence also. I'll say what I mean first about nonviolence. My teacher used to say, nonviolence doesn't mean just not doing harm. It means violence, he said, means if you're able to do good for others and you don't do it, that's also violence, a little more proactive. So silence also, if you're talking about worthy subject matters, for instance, now we're talking about ancient wisdom that can actually help us and humanity and so forth. And so this, according to the standard of what real speech is and what silence is, this is also considered silence, because we're not talking whimsically. I'm quoting from great sages. I'm giving wisdom that's been passed down to me, and I'm not making anything up, I hope. And because of that, that's silence. So those who have a propensity to speak, let them speak, but just don't speak nonsense. That help? Okay, thanks for the question. It was very important.
There was a related question from Facebook from Preeti Sandarbha. She liked the point of cleanliness and tolerance, and she was wondering what effort we have to make every day to bring about these changes in life, as well as what can we do, so that we can practice not saying prajalpa.
Well, first thing for cleanliness, I recommend a reliable morning routine. Get up, make your bed, make sure everything's clean. In fact, I like to clean the night before. So when I wake up into a clean environment. It's always a great surprise for me. Like, who did this? And then I always make my bed. I heard a Marine Corps veteran. He was a leader in the Marine Corps. I forget what his rank was, but it was very high. And he was just saying how the first thing, make your bed. Just like the military, make your bed. Why? Because it has to do with the way you're starting your day. If you just leave it in a slovenly mess, then that'll be the state of your mind going into everything else. So be neat and be clean about everything, and get into a routine of cleaning. Don't let it go so far that it becomes overwhelming. Just do it regularly, and it keeps you in sattva. And then practicing the austerity of speech really means the basic principles are speak truthfully and then beneficially. These are mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita in the 17th chapter. Speak truthfully, beneficially, avoid speech that offends, and always and regularly recite the wisdom literatures. These are austerities of the tongue. So practice telling the truth. Sometimes the mind will say, if you say this, it's going to put you at a disadvantage. Well, it's an austerity to come out with the truth anyway. But then the next one comes up, which is beneficially and avoid speech that offends. So you have to walk a fine line to tell the truth in such a way that it doesn't injure people. Although it may be a harsh truth, you still have to be careful with it. There's a lot more to be said about that, but I see more things coming in. Go ahead, JM.
Yes, so we have Sheila. She says, I just moved into a home and I have been reminded of having things in their place. Also to get rid of clutter, to get rid of things that distract me.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for mentioning that. And it does become more prominent when we move, because then you go like, wow, I had no idea I had so much stuff. In fact, if you just clean out one drawer, you'll notice it's a day long, perhaps, exercise, because there's so much packed in there. And also, I would say that this is an ongoing practice. It's not something you can do once and leave. So cultivating cleanliness is a practice. It's a mode you get into. For instance, I developed this habit, I'm proud to say, over some time, that I put things away when I use them. For instance, if I take off a garment, I don't just throw it in a chair and I'll get it later. I've disciplined my mind, so if I take it off, I hang it up where it came from. And I make sure that I put things away as I use them. And that kind of discipline always keeps me a little bit on that edge of shaucham. Go ahead, JM.
We have Sukanya. She says, fasting to develop tolerance is the point she's taking away today.
Yeah, fasting has become very popular. I've been doing it since the 70s, but now it's, if you wait long enough, things come into fashion. But intermittent fasting has become a huge thing for health, mostly. But for spiritual practice, it's very helpful also. Or at least, limiting how much you eat. Don't eat too much. But if you want to try fasting, it can be very beneficial. There's 2 very recommended days in the month astrologically that you can fast on. The 11th day of the waning and waxing moon, called Ekadashi. Today happens to be Ekadashi. I'm fasting today. And I hope I look okay. But I have a lot more time and energy on Ekadashi days when I fast, because I don't have to eat. And nor does my wife have to cook, or nor do I have to rest afterwards. Or what to speak of elimination and all the other thing that goes into eating. It's actually, and then I always have this conversation with my stomach and everybody else down there saying, like, where's the stuff? And it's like, not today. It's like, why not? Because I'm not my body. Just hold on. So these kinds of austerities can be very helpful spiritually.
There are 2 more. One is from Facebook. Amod Dalvi says, reflection for today's session is regarding tapa, to stop the cancer of 3 C's. That is to stop criticism, complaints, and comparing with others by talking less and more meaningful ways.
Ooh, I'm keeping that one. Thanks for offering that. That's really good. Those can be very helpful to keep posted in front of one and keep it in the front of one's mind. If a complaint comes up, it's like, what good's that going to do? Unless it's very constructive and given to the right person at the right time in the right way. Think about it. Thank you.
And we have another one on Zoom from Sun, I think. Any recommendation on practicing tolerance in addition to silence and fasting? How can you practice tolerance?
First of all, hear about tolerance and its benefit. When you fortify your mind to be aware that tolerance is a practice and it's a benefit, then when situations come up, you can take them as an opportunity to try out tolerance, and it's a muscle that you develop after some time. So make a determination in the day that when something comes up that's going to make me flinch, I'm going to practice being unflinching, and then just see what happens, because the fruit is very, very powerful. I have this discipline that I do when I'm driving, which hasn't been very much for the last 5 months. But if you're driving, there's sometimes an opportunity for that sense that somebody offended me can come up on the road. It's called road rage. Anybody heard of that? No? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, road rage. Okay. So road rage can come up. I have a lot of theories about it, but we're almost out of time. So I'll just go to the essence here, which is my practice, which is whenever that situation comes up, whether I'm driving or someone else is, and there's some impolite driving or somebody did it, I always say this mantra: I forgive you. I just say it immediately, and then see how my mind deals with it. My mind's going, "What? You're going to forgive that guy? Forget it. You got to kill him now." But if you're ready for it, you have a mantra ready when things come up in your life. If you're there with a partner, spouse, friend, and you know that from time to time you get annoyed for whatever reason, be prepared and just tolerate, and then wait and see what happens. Oh, I just tolerate it. Even your spouse will go like, "Hey, what just happened here? How come you didn't react?" And the environment changes. Everything changes. Okay. So thank you for giving me the 3 C's right here, JM. I appreciate that. And to who gave that?
This is Amod Dalvi.
Oh, that was really really nice.
I have a quick question. Do we have time?
Yes, Arun.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so
sure.
so like my aunt has started to meditate. She started a couple of months ago, and and she wants me to do it as well, and I'm slowly starting to get into it. But then she has a doubt that she has this thing that she keeps having a lot of thoughts that keep on distracting her while she's doing so. So she just wants to know, like, if there's anything that we can do to focus well. So, yeah.
Very nice segue into the last couple of minutes of our meeting. Yes, there is. First of all, please tell her that all the teachings of yoga and meditation say that when we first start meditating, and in particular mantra meditation or any kind of meditation, you're going to notice that the thoughts are very strong. Just like if you're floating downstream and then all of a sudden you just decide you're going to turn around and swim upstream, you're going to notice it.
Yeah.
When you're going downstream, you don't notice because la-di-da-di-da. But when you turn around and say, okay, swim upstream now, you go, wow, this river is really strong.
Yeah.
So one of the ways to overcome the onslaught and the current of thoughts is through mantra. Man means mind, and tra means to deliver, to rise above it. So by the power of the mantra, and now we'll show a few slides about mantra, we see that we are non-neural, non-chemical, non-temporal spiritual particles. And when we repeat the mantra, which is a transcendent sound vibration that comes from a higher stratum, from the spiritual stratum, then we're able to more easily overcome the onslaught of thoughts and the current of thoughts that come into our mind. So I highly recommend, based on the recommendation of all the great sages like Patanjali, who in his Yoga Sutra recommends this japa, and through Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who taught the main system of meditation through mantra. It's a bona fide and a highly effective method. So let's just try a few mantras here. The first one is Nitai Gauranga. And this mantra opens the heart chakra to compassion and gratitude. And I will say it so everyone behind muted mics can repeat, because it won't sync up the way we are on Zoom right now. So you can just mute yourself and then repeat with me, if you wish, the mantra Nitai Gauranga. Nitai Gauranga, Nitai Gauranga, Nitai Gauranga, Nitai Gauranga. Now the next mantra is called the Maha Mantra. And this mantra will attract the mind above the chatter of the material thought flow and take one to a higher level. So I'll say this mantra 3 times and you can repeat it with me if you wish. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So in doing japa, you take some time to sit and repeat these mantras and listen to the sound vibration. And as you do it on a daily basis, you'll start to develop a relationship with the mantra and you'll start to notice the effects of the mantra. And this is called japa. And also there's a way of singing the mantra, which I've mentioned before. We tried it in previous lives. It's called kirtan. So as an example, the chanter would first sing one mantra like this. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And then those who are listening will repeat that same mantra, and the music can go through various stages and tunes, which are all harmoniously arranged, and then you can be carried away by the mantra in a group. And this has become very popular all over the world, called kirtan. So these 2 methods, and now on lockdown, the japa is very practical, because a lot of time we're here, and if you find a nice space where you can sit and just practice repeating these mantras, can we give them the mantra to download somewhere?
Sure, yeah, we can.
Okay, so that you can try that. And so think about these 5 disciplines. I'd love to hear any kind of experiences you have with them. If you come back next week, we can have some time to take reflections, but just poke around and see how they work for you, and if you have any resistance to them, or if they just are something that you've become aware of and you're adding to your life that gives you some benefit. We'd love to hear about that too. Okay, and just a quick mention that we're in the middle of the 21-day fitness challenge, but anyone can jump in and sign up for that. It really does help to apply some of these principles in your life.
Yeah, it is on the website, so you can go to vaisheshikadas.com, and if you go to the website vaisheshikadas.com, if you just scroll down, you'll see the 21-day fitness challenge. You can access that page right from the home page. And as Vaish mentioned, we are currently in the August 21-day fitness challenge. Josh is leading the pack as always. And he has very good realizations too. I mean, the gratitude journal is very satisfying to read. All the realization that he has.
I'm going to go in and read Josh's stuff today, without fail.
And Lynn is pretty close. She is also doing well, filling up on a daily basis.
Fantastic.
Early. So quite a few of them. So please just go to the page and you have submit progress online, so you can access it. You can click on it, and you can then fill in and access. And once you submit your progress, you will get an email which with the edit response link, and that is what you'll use to resubmit it on a daily basis. So like if you're filling up every day, keep going back to your email in the inbox, and then click on edit response to submit it back. If you have any questions, please shoot a note either on Zoom or email, and we are more than happy to answer that whatever question you might have.
Thank you, everybody. As usual, it's been an unmitigated pleasure to be with you. I really do thank you for your time and attention. It's very heartfelt and meaningful to me. Please keep the transcendental vibration going, and I'll look forward to seeing you next week.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much.